It's a new year, a new week, and a new episode with a new intro. Previously on Worlds Asunder.
Yeah. One thing I'm beginning to learn, though, is there are certain things that Jacob will just always cut, and I'm beginning to work those things sort of out of my writing style. Like, as I'm going through and handwriting for the day, because I always handwrite my stuff, I just think better when I do. I will begin to write something, and I'll be like, you know what, Jacob's just going to cut this anyway. We're just going to not write it. And it's really good about increasing the efficiency. If you know what your editor's going to cut out, then don't just put it there to begin with.
We've read about far-off lands and adventures of heroes, but how do we elicit those feelings of excitement, tension, and wonder in others?
Creating new worlds in any genre might seem like a daunting task, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every story.
Welcome, weary writers, to the Book Career Network of podcasts.
My co-host is David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's Haley H.Y. Gregor, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
Together, we've got enough published to fill a small shelf, but why should you listen to us? Because we called in some favors.
Our friends and colleagues, some of the best and brightest, join us weekly to bring you tips and tricks for your world building and character development. So, open up your ear holes,
Get out your pen and paper,
and get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder. And we've got the final part with the Holos, the Trope Cerberus, part 3, coming at you. Alright, as much as I would love to keep you guys around, Haley, do you have any more trope questions?
I do.
Awesome
I have a
part?
quick.
Do it.
I have one that we can do in bullets. So I want from each of you the top 2 or 3 tropes in your genre that you have had to adhere to. Just like so for sci-fi, for harem, for adventure, whatever you guys want to hit. Say this is my genre, and these are the top 3 tropes that I would recommend looking into.
Oh, let's see, the top 3. So, in harem, and I need to specify that this is male-oriented harem, not reverse harem, because reverse harem and harem have 2 completely separate trope expectations. With male-oriented harem, which tends to be very pulpy, the male character needs to be some form of hero who succeeds. And my readers get really mad when the hero makes even a reasonable mistake. Like there's a certain level of I wouldn't consider it necessarily a trope in harem specifically, but there is a sort of subgenre of what you might call competence porn, where the readers just really want to read about really, really hyper competent characters. And there's a certain degree of that in harem. The readers expect their heroes to know what they're doing. They expect their heroes to be competent in their situation to the point where they don't want them to make reasonable mistakes. And so that's something that I kind of loosely have to adhere to. The big one in harem is
For example, there's a battle in Titan Mage Book 4. And the hero, it's a battle early on, and it's sort of establishing the power of the villain, and the hero naturally does not win this battle. And I believe you got a 2-star review because of that one battle.
Yeah.
He did not win. He lost once early on in order to establish the power of the villain so that he could then overcome this threat. Oh, no, he lost. No, 2 stars.
Another absolutely significant trope in harem is, so when I say harem, I don't mean a realistic harem situation. I don't mean like a polyamorous, realistic relationship. Basically, the trope expectation of harem, it's kind of it's an exaggeration of the male fantasy of getting all the girls. Except instead of getting, say, a different girl in every movie like James Bond does, they just all happen in the same book. It's just that fantasy of having all the types love you. Readers will give you tons of crap if any of the girls are disloyal at all. If they go to anyone other than the main character,
or if they even joke.
Yeah, because that's another thing I got crap on. But
You
But, yes,
still get flack because Bexley joked about
Yes.
sleeping with other men.
So those are the big two. In terms of a third one, though,
Well, 2 or 3. The big
what do you
ones.
think, Jacob? Trying to think of a third trope that I absolutely have to stick to. I mean, all the women have to be sexy, but that's kind of, yeah.
I'm here for that.
So-
Is that a trope?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not so much a trope, but
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it could be.
I think
There's an argument there.
yeah,
That's fair.
Um,
I mean, it is character development, right?
for certain definitions of development, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So I don't know if I'll take the next one while you think, Heather. So one of the things that this is, I don't know if you would consider it exactly a trope, but so there's a you have in like the military sci-fi novels that I've written with David Weber. The protagonist characters, they all they all take responsibility. They all see, if they see a problem, even if they didn't cause it, they will go out of their way to try to solve this problem. So that trait, if you basically look at any heroic character that that David Weber has written, I'm pretty certain they all have that trait. That they will take responsibility, that they will take it upon themselves to clean up the mess, whatever that mess is. And sometimes it's exploding universes, and sometimes it's much smaller than that. But they'll go in there and try to sort it out.
oh, I think I came up with my third trope. So
See,
fingers
so that
crossed.
was the point. I gave you a little bit of time.
Okay, all right. So
Look at that teamwork.
this is not necessarily a trope that's unique to harem, but based upon reader feedback, one thing that I have slowly learned is that increasingly some element of power progression is a very important third trope in harem because and for those who are not familiar with it, there is a subgenre of fantasy called progression fantasy, where the entire point of the fantasy is for the main character to get stronger, like almost Dragon Ball Z style. Like, I gotta train to get stronger so I can beat this bad guy, and then once I beat this bad guy, I gotta get stronger to beat this next bad guy, kind of thing. And in the lit RPG branch, there's a stat association with it. But in all of the series we've written, readers have really, really enjoyed the power progression, whether it's a character's magic getting stronger, or in the case of Titan Mage, the giant robots being upgraded, and stuff like that. So I would say that my third trope is probably that sense of power progression, that sense of getting stronger. Because here's the thing, harem fantasy is ultimately, it's male self-insert power fantasy is what it is. The reader wants to feel powerful, therefore they want their heroes to act powerful. And that's the key thing that I keep in mind when I'm writing this kind of genre. And I like writing really heroic, badass characters, so that works out.
So this is probably a bit more of a underneath the hood trope that goes in when I'm designing certain types of action sequences, is that I tend to structure the challenges to a certain degree with video game logic, in that you'll have your protagonist, and you'll have essentially the trash mob enemies that are just getting blasted left and right. You'll have essentially the kind of mirror match opponent, something that is, roughly an equivalent power level. And then you'll have, the quote unquote level boss. It's like, okay, this is where the hero really has to dig deep and, overcome the seemingly insurmountable challenge. And so those, I guess, three very generalized confrontation models is something that is sort of in the back of my head because I've played way too many video games.
Is there such a thing?
That influences, to a certain degree, how I write my action sequences.
There's no such thing as too many video games. I disagree.
Well,
Which is probably why you have more books out than I do.
Oh no, he plays a colossal amount of video games. Like, I'm kind of surprised that Jacob finds time to play video games and write books. So you're the kind of person who tries to play them as efficiently as possible. Like, you're always maximizing things. And Jacob and I play video games two completely separate ways, which has made... So the Monster Girl Tamer series that we're working on now is Lit RPG. And Jacob and I have two very different approaches to stats in how we play video games, but also apparently in how we write. And that has made this series an adventure.
Min-maxer versus the 100%er?
When I play video games, I don't pay attention to my stats until the game gets hard. And then at that point, I usually discover there is some kind of upgrade system. And once I get to levels where I can't beat the level, then I go and upgrade. And then I play again until I can't beat the level. Whereas Jacob is continually tweaking and messing with stuff, and I don't pay attention to the stats at all. I go vibe. And I just have fun.
Well, one of the games that Heather and I have been playing recently is Helldivers. And so, that
Jacob
game,
tells me what to bring, and I just shoot the aliens. Like, I do not care about my kit layout. Like, I'm going to pick the cutest armor and the giant robot, and then whatever else Jacob tells me to bring. And that's how I play.
It's also helpful that if you press a certain button, you can see the cooldowns of your squad mates. So I'm like, Heather, drop your turrets. We just...
Yep.
Your turrets are off of cooldown. Drop some turrets.
I am not an asset to any multiplayer team, but I have fun and I provide excellent comic relief, I think.
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be the caboose of the group.
Exactly.
That's
I am also not an
reference.
asset. I have fun, but I can't guarantee I'm useful for comedic relief, so I'll work on that.
Yeah. No, it's I've loved watching your guys' status updates on Helldivers because because then we get like Jason Cordova's take on it too, and it's been wonderful. Or Jay
I have not
Ibsen,
partaken.
but
Yep.
that's a game I'm looking at jumping into next with a buddy of mine. So we'll see how that goes. But
It's super fun.
you guys,
Trouble.
here I was thinking that we were at the end, but now I've got another question.
Sorry.
No, it's great. This is great. This will probably be the first 3-parter that we've ever done, which is wonderful.
Ooh. Yes.
I mean, it makes sense because there's 3 of them.
There is 3 of them, so we got to
One
have a
for
part
each
for each one of them. No, but POV, right? You said it. You kind of both alluded to it a little bit. The self-insert part, but is POV a trope?
I don't consider it a trope so much as just a writing mechanic. And it's not... I don't actively think about what point of view I'm going to write in from a storytelling standpoint. I write third person because I like third person. I'm never going to write first person because I hate first person. And second person is just right out. But
Yeah.
But yeah,
Five
so
is
I don't
right out.
consider it a trope just so much as a stylistic and mechanical preference.
Well, let's see.
YA. There's some YA that writes in first person present that seems to be a trope for that, which I also hate.
Tense.
Sorry, Jacob.
Now,
I interrupted you.
in that term, though, speaking in that from that perspective, though, I think there are certain genres where I think point of view could be a genre expectation, and the reason why I bring that up is because in a lot of harem and lit RPG, it's written from first person, And enough of it is written in first person that I actually got a review once that commented on the fact that it didn't like that it wasn't in the main character's head.
Huh.
And it wasn't something I'd even thought about before. But
you also
but I
got
think for
that
certain
one
genres,
review that was from someone who apparently had never encountered third person literature before.
yeah. And so yeah, I mean, but it's not something I think of when I'm thinking in terms of design tropes. But I do think it is something where I think it's genre relevant. I mean, now that I think of it, I am just beginning to get into romantasy and female-oriented romance. I encounter a lot of first person there because the thing about it is that genres that are written for women are more interested in the internal emotions of the main characters. First person is excellent for conveying that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of first person in the romantasies I've been reading.
Now, I will say that I personally find first person to be more difficult to write and involves more planning.
Interesting.
Just because of how, it's you know, if you're dealing with a big epic story, then bouncing between viewpoints, that makes it a lot easier mechanically to tell the story. Now, then if you're locked into a single viewpoint character, which you are with first person most of the time, though I did encounter the one rare book that was first person but had multiple perspective points, and that was a little bit weird. But other than those odd, the odd one out, I do prefer writing in third person. Most of the stuff that I've written is in third person, and all of the stuff that I'm pretty sure all of the stuff that has been published under my name is in third person. I think the one novel that I sent Bane that was first person, Tony decided not to buy. So I'm like, okay, well, how about I try something else next time, Tony?
And now that I think of it, I think I enjoy third person for similar reasons, because I don't write big, epic, complicated naval battles. In fact, I intentionally limit how many characters tend to be in a given scene to make it easier to give each character time to shine. But ultimately, I write ensemble casts. I really, really enjoy writing character banter and characters bouncing off of each other. And it's a lot easier to get into the heads of all those characters if I'm writing in third person as opposed to first person. And you're not necessarily... Even when I write in third person, I do tend to pick one specific viewpoint character and write everything as that character would notice. But it allows me the freedom to include some other little, sort of omniscient details in it. And I find third person very fitting for ensemble casts.
So, Blood Knight, the entire Blood Knight series is third person, but it almost exclusively follows the main character around. In fact, if I'm counting this correctly, there are, or will be, once the series is completed, only 7 scenes that are from another character's perspective in the entire series. 5 books.
That's fair. One of the short stories that Haley and I co-wrote was the Malaysian Accords short. It had 3 POVs, but only one of the POVs appeared. The first POV that appeared, it was the only time you saw and it was our villain's point of view, and it was essentially how he becomes what he becomes. And so, there is, I think, a point to be made where you can touch briefly on, and even kind of to your point, you said you saw a book that did first person POV for every character. That might drive me a little nuts because I would never know who I'm reading. But I've seen it done
it
where
was-
it's like one character's first person and a couple are third.
Yeah, there was that particular book. I think it was two characters, but they were both it was bouncing between the two characters, but it was first person for those two characters. And it took me a little bit. It took me about, I think, half the book to realize that, wait a second, what is going on here?
I almost feel like, and I could be crazy. If you guys know, or listeners, let me know if I'm totally off base. I feel like that might be a popular romance trope. Like if you have a male POV and a female POV in romance, I think having those both from first person is not unusual. But
Oh yeah, there's
I'm
one that
not
I'm
a big
reading now that
romance
does
reader.
that. But it's very easy to follow because the woman is like, she's a lady who's been kidnapped from Earth by aliens, and the man is hot alien man who is trying to figure out this weird Earth woman. So it's
Of
like
course.
it's really easy to tell the two apart.
I've done one published first person story. Granted, I did it as a short story, 10K, relatively easier to wrangle. But it was a challenge because I'd been writing almost exclusively third person prior to that. So it made me think that like there might be some genres where the POV is the trope, but I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head though. Oh, all right. Well, now that we've sufficiently exhausted all the things that we can talk about on tropes, Heather,
I have questions still, but I'm not going to go there. We'll have you guys back.
is it on tropes?
I wrote them down. Yes, I wrote them down. We'll ask later.
No. Now's the time.
No,
We're doing
no.
a 3-part episode on tropes. Now's the time. Do it
depends
now.
on our wonderful guests and how much longer they're willing to put up with us.
I can
How
go. I
about
had coffee, so I'm good.
one more question.
There you go. One more question.
All right. You guys
Jacob
are
Holo
sure.
has demanded an end.
Okay. So, now I have to choose one. Okay. Way back during our Star Wars rant, Heather said something about the difference between men and female expectations when it comes to certain tropes, the way that they enjoy media and entertainment. I was wondering if there are ways, or what your guys' tips were for integrating or finding certain things that appeal to both or not, based on the genres you write.
Well, I go back to here's where I want to start. So whenever I talk about the differences between male and female audiences, I always go back to this one bit of research that the Lego company did. When there was a period where they were trying to get girls to buy more Legos, or get parents to buy more Legos for girls, and couldn't figure out why girls were not interested in Legos. And so they did research to figure out how girls play with toys versus how boys play with toys. And what they identified was that boys have, whenever they play with things, they play with toys that they want to emulate. They have like action figures, heroes that they want to look up to. Whereas girls tend to play with toys that are reflective of them, that they can sort of put themselves into. And that kind of shapes how, I'm not describing it well now that I say it aloud. Boys want to aspire to be something. Girls tend to want to just put themselves into something, if that makes sense. Their already existent self. And that, when it comes down to storytelling, it absolutely explains why in a lot of male-oriented stuff, you have this hero, this perfect hero. And in a lot of female-oriented stuff, you have the main character who is a little bit more, or sometimes a lot of bit more flawed. And an example that I go to is the Barbie movie. One thing I identified through the Barbie movie is I don't watch movies like a woman does. I went to the Barbie movie and was really, really pissed that I got a really, really depressed, disillusioned Barbie. When the Barbies that I played with as a kid, I played with my Barbies like they were action figures. I went to the Barbie movie expecting the Lego movie. did not get that for wanting the Lego movie. And
Somehow
but the
not
thing
surprised.
is, if you look at a lot of women's entertainment, a lot of female main characters, a lot of songs and music that is directed at females, a lot of it is exhausted and disillusioned. And a lot of women relate to that. And that is the thing that, like, the Barbie movie absolutely touched on that, and it's one of the reasons why it was such a huge success. I respect that the Barbie movie absolutely knew what audience it was made for and delivered on it. It's not what I wanted from it, so I hate it. but my brain just turned off. But in terms of identifying similar tropes, I think it comes down to structure, basically. Here's one thing that I've identified about romance. Romance, the tropes are very different between men's romance and women's romance. Men's romance is pretty much adventure with the romance as a side, whereas women's romance is it's heavily focused on the internal emotions. All romance comes down to the reader wanting to feel loved. What makes the reader feel loved is going to be different from men to women. But there are certain subgenres have certain tropes that do overlap. But I don't know that it's a universal thing. The one thing I've been able to identify that is similar between men's romance and women's romance is the concept of the protector. Because in men's romance, a lot of the male leads absolutely want to protect the women in their circle. It's part of the power fantasy. In women's romance, the female leads absolutely want to be protected. And it's even if the person doing the protecting is maybe not this admirable kind of guy. Like there's a huge trope in women's romance of you have this really, really dark, dangerous man, but he's dangerous to everyone but her. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's something there, but it has to be really carefully realized. And there are some ways in which some genres are irreconcilable. Reverse harem and harem are irreconcilable because male readers and female readers want two opposing things out of their harem stories. That said, I don't think it's impossible to reconcile them. I just think that it's going to come down to what subgenres a writer is writing in. Like it's going to be a completely circumstantial thing.
And there's also in trying to write something for everyone, you've created something that appeals to no one. Mm-hmm. That you've spread your the efforts too thinly, rather than picking a tighter focus. And there are, as Heather said, in some cases they're polar opposites. Mm-hmm. And if you try to satisfy both both sides of that audience base, and you just land somewhere in the middle, and then mm-hmm. the response from both sides is you run the risk of it being rather tepid.
Know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing I found with Titan Mage is that I am beginning to find that sort of happy medium with Titan Mage, because the thing is, Titan Mage is absolutely written for men, but I have a not insubstantial number of female readers who like it specifically because of the way I wrote the female characters. And here's the thing. Yeah, I'm writing in a genre that is designed for the male gaze. I also went to a women's college. I'm not going to write women who are cardboard sexy cutouts. And some of the... It's weird for me, but some of the most common praise I get for Titan Mage is that the women have characters independently of the male main character. in which is it's not incredibly common for harem, admittedly, just because of the nature of the genre. But I get a lot of compliments on the fact that the women feel like they exist, like they have their own lives and concerns outside of him, even though he's definitely a key part of their lives.
Some harem series is kind of structurally like Pokemon. You just got to collect them all, and that's really the extent of it.
Yeah.
It's fair.
As it goes.
Yeah. And so here's the thing too. I mean, in terms of the female audience that enjoys Titan Mage, women enjoy sexy men. I mean, that's why the romance genre is what it is. The male leads in harem, like, for the most part, are all sexy. Like, and so that's a point of appeal for the women too. It's just how that sexiness is realized. And one of the things in Titan Mage that I think actually really contributed to why there's a pretty good sized female audience, we structured every single one of the Titan Mage books after. So there are 5 women in Locke's harem and in the main character's harem. In each book, he is helping one of his women through some kind of problem of hers. And she's not just an accessory to his adventure. His adventure and her adventures are inextricably tied together. And that's one of the big points of appeal for readers, I think. They're in a genuine relationship. And it's an adventure relationship and a romantic relationship, and they're very tied together.
And that's also why we utilize that same basic underlying structure for Blood Knight. So that each book has a cover girl, and that cover girl has a problem, and the main character helps her solve it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so long as it works, it's making you money, you guys are doing well, right? So clearly you know what's up. But we will that was our one question, and we got way more answers out of that one question than I thought we would get, so I love it.
I followed the rules.
You did. You followed the rules. However, as much as we would love to keep sitting here and chatting with you guys, we're gonna cut it off, and we'll make sure that we bring you back on down the road. Where can people find you next? Realizing that this part of the episode's not coming out till January.
But it'll all be in the show notes. I got you.
Yeah, we'll definitely include it in the show notes, though, so that way people can catch it earlier on. But where can people find you guys next? What can people look for from you?
Our next convention is going to be MarsCon, which is... Say stuff, Jacob. I saw your mouth moving.
Then Blood Knight 4, Blood Knight Portal of Gold, should be coming out the middle of the month, I believe.
Yep. And then we should have copies of that at MarsCon, which I believe is end of the month. I can't remember if it's the second to last week or the last week.
Martin Luther weekend.
It's MLK. It's MLK weekend.
It's like the 17th through the 19th.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got MarsCon then. We've got SC Comic-Con after that. And nice. I don't think we have any more scheduled for next year yet. But those are our two big ones for the early part of the year. Do we have anything else? I cannot remember.
LibertyCon?
We're not going to be at LibertyCon next year because of
actual
a major reunion, schedule conflict. But
actual family.
Yeah.
I always describe, and not to say that I dislike my family, but I always describe LibertyCon as a family reunion, but you like everybody. Because it has that kind of vibe. And it's like, I love my family, but yeah.
And yet you keep saying it like that.
Well, it's a good descriptor, though. Like,
it's fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we will look forward to seeing you guys in MarsCon, because that will be... Yes. Although we have by the time this episode comes out, it will be gone. We're selling books at the Trading Post this weekend. So it'll be long over by the time this episode comes out. But we will be at MarsCon as well. So we'll definitely hook up with you guys there.
We owe you dinner.
We do owe you dinner.
Yeah. from Fantasy, because we invited you guys out. And then
yes,
you,
I remember now.
funny
us
story from
appetizers.
Fantasy. Yeah, we invited the Holos out for dinner. We ended up with a group, and then the Holos paid for dinner, and it was like, well,
gotta
that was
act
not the
fast.
point.
And they sat on the totally end of the table, so we didn't totally get to talk to them as much as we wanted.
Yeah. But we'll
So we owe you. We'll get
we'll
you.
remedy that.
Thank you.
But it was wonderful to talk to you guys. Thank you for coming on Worlds
Thank you for having
Asunder.
us.
Thank you, Haley, for sticking with it and coming back. I know everybody's going to be real excited to see you back after your hiatus.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
We had 2 episodes where it was just myself and Casey. So, although you'll have come back for the Maya episodes, so the editors episodes. But
This pre-recording thing.
oh yeah, I still have to learn all the timing. I'm trying. It's real hard. But speaking of, we'll have some fun things that we have to do pickups for. But so thank you to all. Hopefully you guys continue to follow us. Depending on, we'll see what changes the new year brings. But thank you all once again, and we'll catch you later next time on Worlds Asunder.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'm
Whenever.
still thinking of what to say. Like I'm bad at on the spot messages.
Shady will absolutely put that.
The good news
No,
is
he
I cut
absolutely-
this out.
If you were me, he would not. He would put it all in.
Oh, I still might add it in. I haven't decided yet. We'll see.
We do have an episode where a cockroach fell on my head mid-recording, and instead of like cutting it, he did a play-by-play. Like he slowed it down and did, in case you weren't, and missed it, and then he like circled the cockroach, because you see it crawling on the wall behind me first, and then it fell on my head like it was a whole thing. So, yeah.
That was the first episode that didn't get a
It was the
video
first episode that
appearance.
deserved a video appearance.
I know. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited to put that one. Well, would you look at that? First episode of the new year, and you survived the Trope Cerberus. Welcome to the end. We hope you enjoyed how we managed to stretch one question into a whole nother episode. Thanks again to the Holos. They're always a blast to hang out with, and we love the fact that they gave us some extra time there. Thanks again to Book Career Network for hosting us, and Nick Thacker as well. As you could tell, I probably owe Heather an apology for including the blooper, but instead, I'm going to plug Blood Knight 4, Portal of Gold, the newest in the Blood Knight series from Edie Skye. Don't forget, Chernobog's Wrath came out right at the end of December from Haley's collection. And you can get links to all of these things and follow us via the show notes. Next week, get hyped for another recap episode. We got a lot of ground to cover, a lot of good stuff we've been through since the last one. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and give it a share. Invite some new listeners, and thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. Hopefully you enjoyed the new stuff, and we'll see you next time.